Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto awakened power of the Ope Ope no mi Ope Ope fruit and fell in love with Nami. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Surgical awakening. The mist clung to the waters surrounding the land of waves like a jealous lover, reluctant to release its grip even as morning sun attempted to pierce through. Naruto Uzumaki crouched atop one of the massive support beams of the great Naruto Bridge, a name that still made him grin despite having heard it countless times. Below, waves lapped gently against the concrete pillars, their rhythm oddly dissonant with the strange energy pulses he'd been tracking for 3 days. Anything yet? Shikamaru's voice crackled through the radio earpiece, the tactician characteristic boredom barely masking his concern. Naruto adjusted the chakra flow to his feet, maintaining perfect balance despite the slick surface. Nothing concrete, but something's definitely off about this place. He squinted toward the horizon where sea met sky in a gray blur. The energy signature keeps shifting. It's not like any chakra I've ever felt. Troublesome. Lady Tsunade wants a report by sundown. Yeah. Naruto clicked off the communication device and closed his eyes, extending his senses outward. At 20, the once hyperactive genin had grown into a formidable jonin. His spiky blonde hair was longer now, framing a face that had lost its childish roundness but retained its ability to shift from infectious grin to intense focus in an instant. The orange and black outfit remained his signature, though modified with more practical pouches and reinforced armor sections that Sakura had insisted upon after his last near-fatal mission. The strange energy pulsed again, stronger this time. Naruto's eyes snapped open, the blue darkening momentarily as he sensed something fundamental shifting in the air around him. Not genjutsu, not ninjutsu, something different. A disturbance in the water 40 meters out caught his attention. The surface bulged unnaturally, as if something massive was rising from below. In one fluid motion, Naruto created 3 shadow clones and launched himself toward the anomaly. Feet barely touching the water's surface as chakra control and momentum carried him forward. The water erupted before he could reach it, not in an explosion, but in a perfect circle, as if an invisible cookie cutter had punched through reality itself. Water, fish, and even a section of air hung suspended in defiance of gravity. At the circle's center floated an object unlike anything Naruto had encountered, a fruit, luminescent and pulsing with pale blue energy, covered in swirling patterns that seemed to twist in impossible directions. What the hell? Naruto muttered, slowing his approach. His instinct screamed danger, but curiosity had always been his weakness. The suspended circle collapsed without warning. Water, fish, and the strange fruit plummeted toward the sea. Without thinking, Naruto dove forward, fingers closing around the fruit milliseconds before it would have hit the water. The moment his skin contacted the object, pain lanced through his body, not external but internal. As if every cell was simultaneously trying to rearrange itself. His vision blurred, darkness encroaching from the edges. The last thing Naruto registered was the water ushing up to meet him and a voice. Not Shikamaru's, not Kurama's, but something ancient and amused, whispering, "Interesting choice, surgeon." Then nothing. Drip, drip, drip. The familiar sound grew. Naruto as consciousness gradually returned. He didn't need to open his eyes to know where he was, the vast sewer system of his mindscape, home to his lifelong tenant. "Took you long enough, Kit." Arama's rumbling voice echoed through the chamber, but something about it seemed different, strained, almost. Naruto pushed himself up from the shallow water and opened his eyes. The sight before him froze the breath in his lungs. Kurama, the 9-tailed fox, most powerful of the tailed beasts, was transformed. The massive orange fox remained, but his form was now overlaid with glowing blue lines forming complex patterns across his fur. The patterns pulsed in time with Kurama's breathing, occasionally shifting like liquid flowing through transparent tubes. "What happened to you?" Naruto approached cautiously, noting that the familiar bars of the seal were now etched with the same blue patterns. Kurama's massive eyes narrowed, pupils vertical slits against crimson irises. "Not just me, us. On. Massive paw gestured toward a reflective pool of water. See for yourself. Naruto peered into the mirror-like surface. His reflection showed the same blue lines crawling across his skin, concentrating around his seal and extending outward like a circuit board designed by a madman. As he watched, the lines faded from visibility, sinking beneath his skin. What is this? Panic edged into his voice. Some kind of poison. A curse. Kurama laughed, though it sounded more like rocks grinding together. Nothing so mundane. You've gone and done something truly unprecedented, even by your ridiculous standards. The fox shifted, the blue lines brightening momentarily. You've somehow merged a devil fruit with a tailed beast. A what fruit? Devil fruit. Objects of immense power from beyond the elemental nations. Kurama's tail swished in agitation. They're not from our world. Not entirely. They exist in the oceans beyond the borders, where chakra is rare and different powers rule. Naruto crossed his arms. And how exactly would you know about these things? Been keeping secrets, Fuzzy. The fox's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile or a snarl. I've existed for centuries, witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations you couldn't imagine. The world is larger than your small ninja villages, Kit. Fine, whatever. So what does this devil fruit do? And why did it merge with you? It didn't merge with me. Kurama's voice dropped to a dangerous rumble. It merged with us. The seal connecting us created a unique situation. As for what it does, the fox paused, seemingly sorting through information. This particular fruit is the Ope Ope no nami, the operation fruit. In the waters beyond your lands, it's considered the ultimate medical tool, granting the user power O. Veer everything within a space they create. Naruto frowned. Like a medical ninjutsu. Far beyond that, it allows manipulation of space itself, separating, rearranging, and controlling anything within designated areas called rooms. You could remove a heart without breaking skin, swap personalities between bodies, or grant someone immortality at the cost of your own life. That's. Naruto struggled to find words. Insanely powerful, and dangerous. Devil fruits always extract a price, usually the ability to swim. In your case, Kurama's expression became unreadable. The consequences are unknown. No Jinchuriki has ever possessed a devil fruit before. Naruto rubbed his temples, processing. So I just accidentally ate some super rare magic fruit from beyond the ninja world, and now I have weird operation powers on top of everything else. Precisely. Well, that's actually kind of awesome. Naruto's face split into a grin. Think of all the people I can help with this. Granny T. Tsunade is going to flip when she finds out. Kurama's massive eyes rolled upward. Of course that would be your reaction. But first, you need to wake up. Your body is currently floating face down in the ocean. Naruto's eyes widened. Wait, what? Why didn't you lead with that? Because you weren't in any danger. Your clones pulled you out immediately. But you should return to consciousness before they panic and alert the entire village. Right. Naruto turned to leave, then paused. Hey, Kurama, are you okay with this? The fox was silent for a long moment. I've been sealed inside humans for generations. Had my power harnessed and exploited, been controlled and manipulated. This is merely the latest indignity. A pause. But as far as indignities go, I suppose it could be worse. At least it's interesting. Naruto grinned. I'll take that as a yes. See you later, partner. As consciousness began to reclaim him, Naruto thought he heard Kurama mutter, partners with a human surgeon. How the mighty have fallen. Consciousness returned with the unpleasant sensation of seawater being expelled from his lungs. Naruto rolled onto his side, coughing violently as 3 worried shadow clones hovered around him. Boss, you're alive. The nearest clone patted his back with unnecessary enthusiasm. Of course I'm alive, Naruto croaked, pushing himself to a sitting position on the pebbly shore. It'll take more than a weird fruit to. He stopped mid-sentence as awareness flooded back. The fruit. The Ope Ope no nami. The strange new power merged with Kurama. Acting on instinct, Naruto extended his hand toward the nearest clone. Room, he whispered, unsure where the word came from. A transparent blue sphere expanded from his palm, encasing the clone in a dome that distorted the air slightly. Like heat rising from sun-baked stone. Within the sphere, Naruto sensed everything, every cell, every chakra pathway, every molecule of air. Knowledge flowed into him, anatomical. Terms he'd never learned suddenly as familiar as his own name. With a flick of his fingers, he separated the clone's hand from its wrist, not cutting it, but simply detaching it as if removing a glove. The hand floated in midair while the clone stared in open-mouthed shock. No blood, no pain, just a clean separation. That's not normal shadow clone behavior, another clone observed unnecessarily. Naruto made another gesture, and the hand reattached perfectly. He released the room, watching it collapse like a soap bubble. "This is going to change everything," he murmured, rising to his feet with newfound steadiness. "I need to get back to the village." The clones exchanged glances. What about the mission? The energy signature? Naruto glanced down at his hands, where blue lines momentarily flickered beneath his skin. "I think I found it." He formed a familiar hand sign. "You guys keep investigating the area. I'll report to Granny Tsunade." As the clones dispersed, Naruto gazed out at the misty horizon. For the first time, he wondered what lay beyond those waters, beyond the boundaries of the world he knew. Whatever civilizations existed there, they created fruits of immense power that were clearly never meant to mix with tailed beasts. He turned and leapt into the trees, chakra propelling him forward with practiced ease. He had no idea what this development meant for his future. But one thing was certain. Life had just become considerably more complicated. Absolutely not. Tsunade's fist crashed onto her desk, sending cracks spider webbing through the wood. "I forbid you from experimenting with this devil fruit power until we understand exactly what we're dealing with." Naruto stood his ground, arms crossed defensively across his chest. "With all due respect, Granny, I don't think waiting is an option. This power is already active. I can feel it merging with my chakra network. If I don't learn to control it, who knows what might happen." The Hokage's amber eyes narrowed dangerously. 3 days had passed since Naruto's return from the Land of Waves, and the tension in the Hokage Tower had only increased with each new revelation about his condition. Sakura, standing beside her mentor with a thick medical file clutched to her chest, intervened. "Lady Tsunade, Naruto's right. His latest tests show unprecedented changes in his cellular structure. The Ope Ope no nami appears to be actively reconfiguring his chakra pathways to accommodate its abilities. Suppression could cause more harm than controlled practice." Tsunade glared at her apprentice. "Whose side are you on?" "Medicine's side," Sakura replied evenly, setting the file on the desk. "These readings are fascinating from a medical perspective. If Naruto can truly manipulate space within these rooms he creates, the implications for medical ninjutsu are revolutionary." The Hokage sighed heavily, reaching for a sake bottle hidden in her desk drawer. Finding it empty, she muttered a curse that would have shocked civilians. "Fine, but not unsupervised. Kakashi will oversee your training." She fixed Naruto with a stern look. "And no experiments on living subjects without explicit approval. Am I clear?" "Crystal clear." Naruto's face broke into a relieved grin. "So when do we start?" "Yesterday," came a lazy voice from the window. Kakashi perched on the sill, orange book in hand as always. "Training Ground 44 has been cleared for our use. Isolated, secure, and far from prying eyes." Naruto's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. "The Forest of Death, really? Would you prefer a more I see venue for learning to remove people's hearts?" Kakashi's visible eye crinkled in what might have been amusement or concern. "Point taken." Tsunade leaned forward, her expression grave. "There's something else you should know. Our intelligence division has been researching these devil fruits since your incident. They're exceedingly rare and virtually unknown in the elemental nations, but common knowledge in the ocean territories beyond our borders. The Grand Line, Kakashi supplied. A vast sea route circling the globe, home to pirates, revolutionaries, and a governing body called the World Government." "Pirates?" Naruto's eyes widened. With ships and buried treasure." Sakura rolled her eyes. "Focus, Naruto. The important thing," Tsunade continued, "is that devil fruit users are highly prized and often hunted. Both by this world government and by rival pirate crews. If word spreads about a Jinchuriki who also possesses the Ope Ope no nami, I become an even bigger target than I already am," Naruto finished. "Sobering. Great. Which brings me to your next assignment. Tsunade pulled a sealed scroll from her desk. Once Kakashi deems your control adequate, you'll be adding to our coastal outpost near the Land of Waves. We've received reports of increased maritime activity, possibly pirate incursions into our waters. I want you to investigate. Naruto accepted the scroll, his expression unusually serious. You're sending me toward pirate territory. Isn't that like throwing chum into shark-infested waters? Actually, it's brilliant, Kakashi commented, finally closing his book. No one would expect us to send a valuable devil fruit user directly toward the threat. And if you're going to learn about this new power, what better source than the culture that understands it? Besides, Tsunade added with a thin smile, I'm not sending you alone. Shikamaru will accompany you for strategic support, and Captain Yamato for his wood-style containment abilities, just in case. Naruto recognized the precaution for what it was, a safeguard against losing control. He nodded, acknowledging the wisdom despite his instinctive dislike of being handled with kid gloves. So, Kakashi said cheerfully, shall we begin your training with dismembering some training dummies? Naruto groaned. When you put it that way, it sounds horrible. Would you prefer spatial reconfiguration of anatomical structures? Sakura suggested with clinical precision. I'd prefer lunch first, actually. Naruto patted his stomach. Learning reality-bending medical techniques on an empty stomach seems like a bad idea. Tsunade waved a dismissive hand. Go, train. Don't accidentally turn anyone inside out. As they filed out of the office, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just veered onto an entirely new path, one that would take him far beyond the borders of the world he knew. Room. The blue sphere expanded outward, larger than any Naruto had yet created. Encompassing 100-meter diameter within the Forest of Death. 2 weeks of intensive training had yielded remarkable progress, though not without complications. Within the dome, Naruto sensed everything, the position of every leaf, the heartbeats of small animals, the flow of sap in ancient trees. Most importantly, he sensed the 30 shadow clones scattered throughout the area, each holding a different object. Shambles, he whispered, focusing intently. Across the training ground, objects instantly swapped positions, kunai exchanged with scrolls, shuriken with food pills, explosive tags with flower petals. The precision required was immense, but growing more natural by the day. Impressive, Kakashi remarked from his perch in a nearby tree. Your control has improved exponentially. Naruto maintained the room for another 30 seconds before releasing it, exhaling slowly as the blue dome dissipated. It's getting easier, but still drains my chakra faster than almost any jutsu I know. That's to be expected. You're manipulating space itself. Kakashi leapt down, landing soundlessly beside his former student. The chakra cost is high, but your reserves are deeper than anyone's in the village. The real limitation seems to be concentration. Naruto nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. Unlike his normally chaotic fighting style, the Ope Ope powers demanded absolute precision. And focus. Qualities he'd never prioritized before. Kurama says the fruit is still integrating with my chakra network. Eventually, it should become more efficient. How is our fox friend handling the changes? Kakashi's tone was casual, but his gaze was sharp. Grumpy but fascinated. He's never encountered anything like this before, and he's been around for centuries. Naruto stretched, working out stiffness in his shoulders. The weirdest part is the knowledge that comes with it. I suddenly understand human anatomy better than after years of Sakura's lectures. A fortunate side effect. Kashi pulled out his ever-present book but didn't open it. Lady Tsunade is pleased with your progress. The mission to the coastal outpost is scheduled to begin tomorrow at dawn. Naruto brightened. Finally, 2 weeks of chopping up trees and rearranging rocks is getting old. You'll be chopping up trees at the outpost too. Just with ocean views. Kakashi's eye crinkled. Captain Yamato has prepared a specialized containment seal. Just as a precaution. Try not to take it personally. Yeah. Naruto waved dismissively, though the constant reminders of his potentially dangerous condition grated on him. I know the drill. One sign of trouble and I get stuffed in a wooden box. More like a spacious wooden apartment with essential amenities. Kakashi tucked his book away. Pack for variable conditions. The weather near the border is unpredictable this time of year. As his former teacher vanished in a swirl of leaves, Naruto dispelled his shadow clones, absorbing their experiences with practiced ease. Each dispelled clone added to his growing understanding of the Ope Ope powers, how they interacted with different materials, their limitations, their potential applications. The Yu's abilities complemented his existing skills in unexpected ways. Shadow clones could maintain separate rooms, multiplying his effective range. Rasengan, channeled through the spatial manipulation, could target specific organs or systems. Even his wind nature, previously focused on cutting and piercing, gained surgical precision within a room. Yet for all the technical progress, Naruto couldn't shake a persistent feeling of unease. These powers weren't born of the shinobi world. They came from somewhere else, somewhere beyond the maps in Konoha's libraries. And if the fruit had crossed the boundary between worlds, what else might follow? Gathering his training equipment, Naruto turned toward the village, mind already shifting to preparations for tomorrow's journey. Whatever waited at the edge of the known world, he would face it head-on, as he always had. The transition from dense forest to coastal plains happened gradually, then suddenly. One moment, Naruto and his companions were leaping through familiar fire country canopy. The next, they crested a ridge to find the land falling away before them, replaced by rolling hills that stretched to a distant shoreline where land met a seemingly endless expanse of blue. Whoa, Naruto breathed, pausing to take in the view. Despite years of missions across the elemental nations, he'd rarely ventured this close to the outer boundaries. The ocean glittered in the afternoon sun, simultaneously inviting and intimidating in its vastness. Shikamaru landed beside him, appearing distinctly unimpressed. It's just water. Lots and lots of troublesome water. Not just water, Captain Yamato corrected, joining them at the ridge. The boundary between our world and theirs. Beyond that horizon lies the Grand Line, a sea route encircling the globe. Home to wonders and terrors beyond our experience. You sound like you've been there, Naruto observed. Yamato's expression remained neutral. Anbu operations occasionally cross boundaries. Let's leave it at that. They continued toward the coast, the terrain growing increasingly unfamiliar. Traditional fire country architecture gave way to structures designed to withstand salt air and DC storms. Stilted buildings with sloped roofs, weathered docks extending into protected harbors, warehouses built from unfamiliar woods. The people changed too. Alongside standard shinobi attire paired clothes Naruto had never seen, flamboyant pirate garb, naval uniforms, exotic fabrics from distant islands. Languages he didn't recognize mingled with familiar dialects in the bustling port town that emerged on the horizon. Welcome to Boundary Bay, Yamato announced as they approached the settlement. Last outpost of the elemental nations before international waters. The perfect blend of NJA discretion and sailor superstition, meaning everyone minds their own business. Perfect for our purposes, Shikamaru muttered, eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. We should reach the outpost before sunset. Naruto barely heard him, fascinated by everything around them. A street vendor sold fruits he'd never seen before. A weathered sailor with intricate tattoos argued with a merchant over the price of what appeared to be a log pose, some kind of navigational instrument. Children played with toys crafted from shells and coral rather than traditional materials. Focus, Naruto, Yamato reminded him. We're not tourists. Right, sorry. Naruto dragged his attention back to their mission. So what exactly are we investigating again? Shikamaru sighed. Did you even read the mission brief? Increased maritime activity in our territorial waters. Ships with unidentified flags. Possible devil fruit users operating within sensor range of our outposts. And rumors of Akatsuki contacts with pirate crews. Yamato added quietly. Specifically, an organization called Baroque Works. That caught Naruto's full attention. Akatsuki working with pirates. That's a terrifying combination. Hence our presence, Shikamaru replied. Though why Lady Tsunade thought sending the only Jinchuriki devil fruit user hybrid directly toward the threat was a good idea remains beyond even my understanding. They continued through the bustling port, attracting curious glances but no outright hostility. Konoha headbands earned respectful nods from some locals and wary distance from others. The Anobi outpost itself was cleverly disguised as a weathered lighthouse on a rocky promontory overlooking the harbor, visible to all yet revealing nothing of its true purpose. Inside, the facade of neglect gave way to cutting-edge technology. Sensor arrays monitored shipping lanes. Communication systems maintained contact with Konoha and other allied villages. A specialized team of water nature Shino operated continuous surveillance of underwater approaches. The outpost commander, a scarred Jonin named Maki with salt and pepper hair and the weathered complexion of someone who'd spent decades at sea, greeted them with brisk efficiency. Briefing room, 5 minutes, she ordered after cursory introductions. We've had developments. The briefing room overlooked the harbor through one-way glass, offering a panoramic view of the maritime traffic. Maps covered the walls, standard shinobi charts alongside nautical maps marked with currents, depths, and hazards. Maki wasted no time once they were seated. 3 days ago, our sensor barrier detected an unusual vessel crossing into our waters. She activated a projection jutsu, displaying an image of a sleek ship with a distinctive figurehead shaped like a ram's head. No recognizable flag, minimal crew, advanced design. It appeared to be damaged and taking on water. Pirates? Shikamaru asked. Unknown. Before we could intercept, this happened. She changed the projection to show a massive sea creature, a sea king, Naruto recalled from his briefings, rising from the waves near the ship. Standard sea king attack. Normally, we'd let nature take its course. But, Yamato prompted. But then we detected multiple energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Another projection shift showed the small ship somehow evading the CK-ing through what appeared to be impossibly precise maneuvering. Our analysts identified at least 2 probable devil fruit users aboard, plus several individuals with combat capabilities that don't match known shinobi techniques. Naruto leaned forward, intrigued. So where's this ship now? That's the problem. Maki's expression darkened. It vanished from our sensors approximately 6 hours ago, somewhere in this region. She indicated an area of open ocean bordering their territorial waters. We've dispatched scout vessels, but visibility is poor due to unusual weather patterns. What kind of weather patterns? Shikamaru's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Localized storm systems that appear and disappear with no natural cause. Lightning strikes with impossible precision. Fog banks that move against prevailing winds. Maki crossed her arms. Our meteorological specialist suspects weather manipulation, possibly another devil fruit ability. Naruto exchanged glances with his teammates. Ether manipulation wasn't unheard of among shinobi, but it typically required massive chakra expenditure and complex jutsu. A devil fruit that specialized in it could be formidable. I'll investigate personally, Naruto decided. If there are devil fruit users out there, I have the best chance of understanding their abilities. And the highest risk of being targeted, Yamato countered. Remember your containment protocols. Actually, Shikamaru interjected, Naruto's new abilities make him ideal for reconnaissance. His room technique can extend sensor capabilities beyond our normal range, and if threatened, he has multiple escape options. Maki looked between them, clearly not fully briefed on Naruto's condition. Whatever specialized abilities you possess, you'll need a vessel. I can Avid a small scout ship with minimal crew. No crew, Naruto said firmly. Just us 3. Fewer people at risk if things go sideways. Have you ever piloted a ship before? Maki raised an eyebrow. Naruto grinned confidently. How hard can it be? I mastered a reality-altering devil fruit in 2 weeks. The collective sigh from everyone in the room suggested his optimism might be misplaced. Left. Turn left, Shikamaru shouted over the howling wind. That's port. Say port, Yamato corrected, gripping the railing as the small scout vessel pitched violently in the growing swells. I don't care what it's called, Naruto yelled back, wrestling with the wheel. Nothing's responding anyway. What had begun as a routine scouting mission had rapidly deteriorated into a nightmare of nautical incompetence compounded by rapidly deteriorating weather. Dark clouds had materialized seemingly from nowhere, bringing driving rain and winds that tossed their small vessel like a toy. This isn't natural, Yamato observed, forming hand seals to create wooden supports that reinforced the buckling deck. The storm formed too quickly, and it's centered directly on our position. Which means we're either extremely unlucky, Shikamaru grimaced as spray soaked him to the skin, or someone knows we're here. Naruto squinted through the downpour, trying to maintain some semblance of control over their vessel. The sea had transformed from tranquil blue to angry gray, waves rising to heights that threatened to capsize them with each pass. Lightning split the sky in precise patterns that couldn't possibly be random. "Room," he shouted, extending his hand. The blue sphere expanded outward, encompassing their ship and a substantial portion of the surrounding ocean. Within the dome, Naruto's senses extended to everything: water currents, air pressure, the structural integrity of their vessel. More importantly, he sensed something else, a presence approximately half a kilometer to the northwest, hovering just at the edge of his room. "There's someone out there," he called to his companions. "Controlling the weather somehow. Can you counter it?" Yamato asked, continuing to reinforce critical sections of their increasingly damaged ship. Naruto frowned in concentration. Maybe, not by affecting the weather directly, but he focused on the water molecules within his room, using the Ope Ope powers to subtly alter their arrangement. Not trying to stop the storm. That would require more power than he could safely channel, but creating a pocket of relative calm around their vessel, a buff. Our zone where the worst effects were mitigated. The ship stabilized slightly, giving them precious moments to assess their situation. There, Shikamaru pointed through a momentary break in the downpour. A silhouette of another vessel appeared briefly before being swallowed again by sheets of rain. Approximately 700 meters, bearing northwest. "I sense it," Naruto confirmed, maintaining his room with increasing strain. "But there's something weird about it. The energy signature, it's similar to mine somehow." Before either teammate could respond, a massive wave rose beside them, not forming naturally but being literally pushed upward as if by an invisible hand. It hovered there, defying gravity, a wall of water poised to crash down and obliterate their small craft. "Brace," Yamato shouted, reinforcing the hull with the strongest wood-style technique he could manage. Naruto made a split-second decision. Shambles. In an instant, he teleported himself directly toward the presence he'd sensed, substituting his position with a section of empty air near what he hoped was the enemy vessel. The disorientation of sudden teleportation combined with the howling storm made landing difficult. He crashed onto a wet wooden surface, rolling to absorb the impact. When he looked up, he found himself on the deck of a small but distinctive ship with a ram's head figurehead, the very vessel they'd been searching for. More surprisingly, he found himself staring up at a slender woman with short orange hair, wielding what appeared to be a staff composed of interlocking blue sections. Her eyes widened in shock at his sudden appearance. For a frozen moment, they simply stared at each other, a shinobi with devil fruit powers and what appeared to be a weather-controlling pirate, while the storm raged around them. The woman recovered first. "Who the hell are you?" she demanded, leveling her staff at his chest. "And how did you just appear on our ship?" Naruto rose slowly to his feet, keeping his movements non-threatening despite the urgency of the situation. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, ninja from the Hidden Leaf Village. And I'd be happy to explain everything, but first," he gestured toward the massive wave still poised to crush his friend's vessel, "could you maybe not drown my teammates?" The woman's eyes narrowed suspiciously, but after a moment of consideration, she twirled her staff in a complex pattern. The threatening wave collapsed back into the sea, not gently but with substantially less force than it had been gathering. "Talk fast," she ordered, still maintaining a combat stance. "Why are elemental nations shinobi tracking us?" "We detected your ship entering our waters," Naruto explained, keeping his voice calm despite the rain still pelting them both. "Unusual energy signatures, unknown vessel, standard security response. And the teleportation thing," she pressed. "That's not standard shinobi ability." Naruto hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Before he could decide, another voice called from the cabin doorway. "Nami, what's happening out here?" A young man with dark hair emerged, wearing an open red vest and a distinctive straw hat. His eyes locked onto Naruto immediately, narrowing with instant suspicion. "Who's this guy?" "Says he's a ninja." The woman, Nami, replied without taking her eyes off Naruto. Appeared out of nowhere using some kind of teleportation. The straw hat man's expression shifted from suspicion to interest. "Oh, that's a cool trick." Despite his casual tone, Naruto noticed how he positioned himself protectively between Nami and the perceived threat. It's a new ability I'm still figuring out, Naruto admitted, deciding that partial honesty might be his best approach. Look, my friends are still out there in that storm. On a ship that's barely holding together. Can we maybe continue this conversation after making sure they don't drown? Nami and the Straw Hat Man exchanged glances, conducting an entire conversation without words. Finally, Nami sighed. Luffy, tell Usopp to prepare the rescue equipment. I'll guide their ship alongside ours. She turned back to Naruto. Any tricks, any sign of hostile intent, and I'll personally ensure you all feed the Sea Kings. Clear. Naruto nodded, relief washing through him. Crystal clear. Thank you. As the Straw Hat Man, Luffy, dashed off shouting for someone named Usopp. Nami returned her attention to calming the storm. The precision of her control amazed Naruto. She wasn't suppressing the weather so much as conducting it, like a musician leading an orchestra. You're using a devil fruit, Naruto observed. Watching her work. For weather control, Nami shot him a surprised look. No, this is technology and knowledge. My Klima tact uses weather science, not devil fruit powers. She studied him with newfound interest. But you know about devil fruits. Interesting for someone from the elemental nations. Before Naruto could respond, a shout from the starboard sea. De announced the arrival of his teammates' battered vessel. What followed was organized chaos as rescue lines were thrown, temporary bridges created with Yamato's wood style, and the thoroughly soaked Shikamaru and Yamato were brought aboard the pirate ship. Only when everyone was safely aboard and the worst of the storm had been directed away from their position did tensions resurface. The two Oops faced each other on the rain-slick deck, three Konoha shinobi versus what appeared to be a small but highly diverse pirate crew. Besides Nami and Luffy, Naruto counted a long-nosed man clutching what appeared to be a slingshot. A blond man in a suit who couldn't seem to stop staring at Nami, and a small reindeer wearing a hat who appeared to be hiding poorly behind the mast. Shikamaru, ite being drenched and clearly irritated, immediately took control of the diplomatic situation. We appreciate the rescue. I'm Shikamaru Nara, tactical advisor to the Hokage. This is Captain Yamato, and you've apparently met Naruto already. I'm Monkey D. Luffy, the Straw Hat Man proclaimed with unexpected enthusiasm. And I'm gonna be king of the pirates. He gestured to his companions. That's Nami, our navigator. Usopp, our sniper. Sanji, our cook. And Chopper, our doctor. King of the pirates, Yamato repeated carefully. An ambitious goal for someone sailing so close to shinobi waters. We didn't intend to enter your territory, Nami interjected, her staff now collapsed and secured at her side. A storm damaged our rudder, and currents pulled us off course. We were making repairs when we detected your vessel approaching, and decided to summon a typhoon as a greeting. Shikamaru's tone remained neutral despite the accusatory words. Defensive measures, she replied unapologetically. The elemental nations aren't known for their hospitality toward pirates. An uncomfortable silence fell, broken only by the diminishing rainfall and the creaking of the ship's timbers. Two NDA mentally different worlds were colliding on this small deck. The structured, militaristic shinobi system and the freedom-seeking pirate lifestyle. Naruto, never one for prolonged tension, decided to bridge the gap. That weather control was amazing. How does your staff work? Is it fueled by chakra? Nami blinked, clearly surprised by his genuine interest. It's science, not chakra. Air temperature manipulation, moisture control, electrical charge separation. Fascinating, Yamato murmured. Advanced technology rather than jutsu. Equally troublesome when directed at us, Shikamaru noted dryly, wringing water from his vest. Luffy laughed, the sound startlingly bright against the gray backdrop of the receding storm. You guys are funny. Hey, are all ninjas as strong as you? Can you all do that teleporting thing? No, that's a special technique only Naruto can use, Yamato explained carefully. Luffy's eyes widened with excitement. So cool. Is it a devil fruit power? Which one? The direct question caught them off guard. Naruto hesitated, unsure how much to reveal to these strangers. Yet something about Luffy's open enthusiasm seemed genuinely unthreatening. Something like that, he hedged. I'm still figuring it out myself. Naruto recently came into possession of unique abilities, Shikamaru elaborated, choosing his words with diplomatic precision. We're investigating unusual energy signatures in the border region, including possible devil fruit activities. Understanding dawned on Nami's face. You're tracking devil fruit users. That's why you were so interested in our ship. Among other concerns, Yamato confirmed, we've received intelligence suggesting possible collaboration between pirates and an organization called Akatsuki. The reaction was immediate and unexpected. Luffy's carefree expression hardened into something dangerous. Nami's hand moved back to her staff. Even the previously nervous reindeer stepped forward with newfound resolve. Crocodile, Luffy stated, the name falling like a stone. Sir Crocodile, former warlord and leader of Baroque works, Nami elaborated, seeing the shinobi's confusion. We recently defeated him in Alabasta. His organization had extensive connections beyond the Grand Line, including deals with people in black cloaks decorated with red clouds, added the long-nosed Usopp, his previous nervousness replaced with serious purpose. We found documents in his headquarters. Naruto felt a chill that had nothing to do with his rain-soaked clothes. That's definitely Akatsuki. They're after people like me, Jinchuriki. Jinchu what now? Luffy tilted his head in confusion. People who contain powerful entities called tailed beasts, Shikamaru explained, giving Naruto a warning glance not to reveal too much. They extract these entities, killing the host in the process. That's horrible, the reindeer, Chopper, exclaimed, speaking for the first time in a surprisingly childlike voice. Why would anyone do that? Power, Yamato said simply. The kind that could threaten both our worlds. A contemplative silence fell over the deck. The storm had cleared almost entirely now, revealing a sky painted with sunset colors. Two groups from different worlds, with different methods and different goals, found themselves facing a potentially common enemy. It was Luffy who broke the silence, his decision apparently made. You should join us for dinner. Sanji's cooking is amazing, and we can talk more about these Akatsuki guys. Luffy, Nami protested. We can't just invite shinobi to dinner without discussing, why not? Luffy's question was genuinely puzzled. They need information, we have information. We need to fix our ship, they probably know where we can do that. And everyone's hungry after fighting a storm. The simplicity of his logic was strangely compelling. Even Shikamaru, master tactician that he was, seemed to have no immediate counter-argument. We accept your invitation, Yamato said formally, after receiving a subtle nod from Shikamaru, and offer our assistance with your repairs in return. As the groups began to move toward the cabin, Naruto found himself walking alongside Nami, who was studying him with undisguised curiosity. That technique you used, she said quietly. The blue sphere that let you teleport. I've seen something similar before. Naruto's steps faltered. You have. Where? North Blue. A pirate surgeon who could operate without making incisions, rearrange people's bodies, swap personalities. Her eyes narrowed. The Ope Ope no mi. One of the most valuable devil fruits in existence. Naruto swallowed hard. And if I did have this fruit's power, then you'd be worth at least 5 billion berries to the right buyer. Seeing his confusion, she clarified. That's enough money to buy a small country. Great, Naruto muttered. Another reason for people to hunt me. Nami's expression softened slightly. If it helps, you're among the few people who could actually use it properly. Most would waste its potential. I'm still learning, Naruto admitted. It's not like there's a manual. A small smile curved Nami's lips. Actually, there might be. Not a manual specifically, but information. The Grand Line has centuries of devil fruit history that your elemental nations probably don't. Hope flared in Naruto's chest. You mean you could help me understand these powers better? Possibly. She glanced toward her crewmates, then back to Naruto. But information isn't free, you know. Despite the obvious negotiation tactic, Naruto found himself grinning. There was something refreshingly straightforward about Nami's mercenary attitude compared to the labyrinthine politics of the shinobi world. I'm sure we can work something out, he replied. After all, we both have something the other wants. As they entered the cabin to join the others, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected encounter was the beginning of something significant. A bridge between worlds that had remained separate for too long. Whether that connection would lead to disaster or opportunity remained to be seen, but one thing was certain, life had just become considerably more interesting. The meal that followed defied all expectations. The ship's cook, Sanji, produced a feast that rivaled the finest restaurants in Konoha despite working with limited supplies and a storm-tossed galley. Conversation flowed more freely with each course, initial suspicions gradually replaced by genuine curiosity on both sides. "So let me get this straight," Naruto said. "Between mouthfuls of perfectly seasoned seafood, you guys are sailing around the world, fighting corrupt governments and evil pirates, looking for some ultimate treasure that may or may not exist." "That's the simplified version," Nami confirmed, sipping from a glass of wine. "The One Piece is real, though. The question is whether we can survive the Grand Line long enough to find it." "Sounds like my kind of adventure," Naruto grinned. "Impossible odds, powerful enemies, world-changing stakes, feels like home." Luffy laughed, somehow talking while simultaneously stuffing impossible amounts of food into his mouth. "You'd make a good pirate. Wanna join my crew?" Luffy, Nami and Usopp exclaimed in unison. "What? He's strong and has cool powers." Shikamaru cleared his throat. "I believe Naruto already has commitments as a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf." Details. Luffy waved dismissively. "People can change jobs. Not when they're essential to village security," Yamato interjected smoothly. "But we appreciate the offer." The conversation shifted to more practical matters, comparing notes on Akatsuki activities, discussing the strange intersection of devil fruits and chakra, and planning repairs for both damaged vessels. Throughout it all, Naruto found his attention repeatedly drawn to Nami, fascinated by the contradiction she embodied: ruthless negotiator and loyal friend. Scientific genius and intuitive navigator, hardened pirate and compassionate woman. When she caught him staring, he didn't look away. Instead, he raised his glass in a small salute that she returned with a curious half-smile. The peaceful dinner was shattered by a sudden explosion that rocked the ship. Plates clattered to the floor as everyone leapt to their feet. "What the hell was that?" Usopp yelped, rushing to a porthole. "We're under attack," Yamato stated calmly, already forming hand seals. Multiple vessels approaching from the east. They spilled onto the deck to find a nightmarish scene. 3 sleek ships surrounded them, each flying a flag bearing a stylized red cloud against black background, a twisted maritime version of the Akatsuki emblem. Figures in dark uniforms moved with military precision, preparing what appeared to be specialized weaponry. "Well," Shikamaru sighed, already analyzing the tactical situation, "this is troublesome." "Looks like your Akatsuki friends found us," Nami commented, assembling her klima tact with practiced efficiency. "They're no friends of ours," Naruto growled, feeling Kurama's energy stirring in response to the threat. The blue line's the Ope Ope power flickered beneath his skin, reacting to his emotional state. "Doesn't matter who they are," Luffy stated, cracking his knuckles as he stepped forward. "Nobody attacks my ship." He turned to Naruto with a grin that contained absolutely no fear, only excitement. Ready to show these guys what happens when pirates and ninjas team up. Despite the danger, Naruto couldn't help returning the grin. "Room," he said, extending his hand. The blue sphere expanded outward, enveloping their ship and the nearest enemy vessel. Within the dome, he sensed every enemy, every weapon, every potential threat. Beside him, Nami raised her staff, electricity crackling along its length as storm clouds began forming overhead once more. "I'll handle weather support," she said. "You focus on your spatial tricks." "Works for me." Naruto's eyes met hers briefly, an unspoken understanding passing between them. They might come from different worlds, with different methods and different dreams, but in this moment, they were perfectly aligned. As the enemy launched their first coordinated attack, Naruto reached deep within himself, drawing on both Kurama's power and the Ope Ope abilities. Blue energy swirled around his hands, forming a Rasengan unlike any he'd created before, a surgical spiral that could cut through reality itself. "Let's show them what happens," he agreed, when the future Cage and the future Pirate King's navigator joined forces. With that declaration, they leapt into battle, ninja and pirate, Jinchuriki and navigator, 2 souls from separate worlds united against a common enemy. And in the chaos that followed, something unexpected began to form between them: respect, admiration, and perhaps the first stirrings of something deeper. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Naviga. Ting Heart's dawn painted the horizon in watercolor strokes of amber and rose, the border between sea and sky a smudged masterpiece of nature's making. Naruto stood at the bow of the Thousand Sunny, watching the distant shoreline gradually materialize from the morning mist. After 3 days at sea, 3 days of repairs, strategic planning, and unexpected cultural exchange, they were approaching their destination, Borderline City. The metropolis straddled the geographic and philosophical divide between the elemental nations and the Grand Line territories, a place where ninja stealth technology and pirate ship design coexisted in architectural harmony. From this distance, the city appeared as a gleaming crescent embracing a natural harbor, ancient stone fortifications flowing seamlessly into modern structures that climbed the terraced hillsides behind. Impressive, isn't it? Nami's voice broke through his reverie as she joined him at the railing. The navigator wore a fitted blue top that matched the color of his eyes, a coincidence he found himself unreasonably pleased by, and carried several rolled maps tucked under one arm. Most people don't realize it's actually 2 cities that grew together over centuries. Naruto glanced at her, noting how the morning light caught the copper highlights in her hair. 2 cities. She nodded, unrolling one of her maps across the railing. Quote, the Eastern District was originally a hidden village outpost, Enkitan, the village hidden in the waves. The Western Harbor was a pirate haven called Freeport. Eventually, the border between them became meaningless, though the architecture and culture remained distinct. Her finger traced the division on the weathered map, a gesture so precise it reminded him of Iruka-sensei's lessons back at the academy. There was something profoundly attractive about her confidence with navigation, the way she handled charts and calculations with the same easy mastery he applied to shadow clones and Rasengans. Quote, you know a lot about places outside the Grand Line, he observed. A shadow crossed her expression. I studied everything I could about the world while, during a difficult time in my life. Knowledge was freedom when I had none. The pain behind those words resonated with something deep in Naruto's own history, the lonely child seeking escape through dreams of acknowledgement and respect. Before he could respond, a loud crash from the main deck interrupted them. You moss-headed idiot, Sanji's voice rang out. Those supplies are for Nami Swan and Robin Kwan's special breakfast. How was I supposed to know? Zoro's deeper voice rumbled back. Everything looks the same in those stupid bags. Nami sighed, rolling her eyes toward the heavens. And the morning was going so peacefully. Naruto chuckled. They remind me of Kiba and Shino back home, always bickering but secretly respecting each other. Secret is right. If either of them heard you suggest they respect each other, they'd throw you overboard. Her smile softened the warning as she rolled up her map. We should join the others. Captain Yamato wanted a strategy meeting before we dock. As they walked together toward the galley, Naruto found himself increasingly aware of the small details about Nami, the slight sway in her step that spoke of perfect balance even on a moving ship, the weather awareness that had her glancing skyward every few minutes. The precise way she tucked her maps into their waterproof case. 3 days had transformed her from stranger to something else. Not quite friend, not quite more, but definitely significant. The galley bustled with morning activity. Sanji danced between stove and counter, somehow preparing breakfast for 11 people without breaking stride. Zoro slouched in a corner, apparently napping but likely aware of everything happening around him. Usopp regaled Chopper with increasingly improbable tales of his adventures in the elemental nations despite never having visited before now. Luffy attempted to steal food and received precise slaps from Sanji's spatula for his efforts. Among this controlled chaos, the 3 Konoha shinobi looked almost comically formal. Maru hunched over navigational charts with Robin, the archaeologist's calm intelligence apparently earning his rare immediate respect. Yamato sat perfectly straight, sipping tea with a polite expressee. On that barely masked his constant assessment of everyone around him. Good, you're here, Shikamaru acknowledged as Naruto and Nami entered. We were just discussing docking procedures. Borderline City maintains strict registration requirements, Robin explained, her smooth contralto a stark contrast to Nami's more expressive tones. Ships must declare their purpose, expected duration of stay, and register all devil fruit users aboard. Naruto tensed. Register fruit users. Why? Control. Robin answered simply. The city exists at the intersection of two powerful spheres of influence, the Shinobi Union and the world government. Neither entity wants unregistered power within the walls, which presents an immediate problem, Yamato interjected. Naruto's condition is classified. We can register him as a devil fruit user without revealing information Konoha considers sensitive. Nami tapped her fingers thoughtfully against her map case. So we need to sneak a Jinchuriki with newly acquired devil fruit powers into the most carefully monitored port city in the known world. Her lips curved into a smile that contained equal parts challenge and mischief. Sounds like Tuesday for the Straw Hat Pirates. We have diplomatic credentials, Shikamaru pointed out, and alternatives to the main harbor. Robin nodded, dark eyes revealing nothing of her thoughts. The Eastern Canal system was designed for ninja infiltration. With your credentials and our creative approach to regulations, we should manage. More importantly, Yamato said, steering the conversation back on track, what's our objective once inside? The Hokage's orders were to investigate Akatsuki connections to pirate activities, not to form alliances with pirates ourselves. Funny how things work out, Naruto grinned, receiving an exasperated sigh from Shikamaru. Our goals align temporarily, the tactician clarified. The Straw Hats have information about Baroque works, connection to Akatsuki. We have intelligence about Akatsuki's broader objectives. Both sides benefit from cooperation. And both sides need to resupply and gather information, Robin added. Borderline City serves as the primary information hub for both worlds. If there's data about Devil Fruit and Jinchuriki interactions, we'll find it there. Luffy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly slammed his fist into his palm. And we'll find meat. The best meat from both worlds. The abrupt shift from serious strategic discussion to enthusiastic food appreciation broke the tension, drawing laughs from around the table. Even Yamato's carefully maintained stoicism cracked with a reluctant smile. Docking in 30 minutes, Nami announced, glancing at the chronometer on the wall. Everyone should prepare their identification documents, including the forged ones. She shot a pointed look at Zoro, who responded with a noncommittal grunt without opening his eyes. Naruto, you'll need disguise options. Got it covered. With a hand sign and puff of smoke, Naruto transformed into a perfect copy of an unremarkable dock worker. Brown hair, forgettable features, standard civilian clothes. Basic transformation jutsu. First thing they teach us at the academy. Robin's eyes widened with scholarly interest. Fascinating. Not an illusion but a physical transformation, correct? Sustained through continuous chakra application. Pretty much. Naruto released the jutsu, returning to his normal appearance. I can maintain it for days if needed. That should suffice for initial entry, Yamato decided. But sustained disguise within the city risks chakra detection by sensor-type shinobi. We'll need alternative arrangements for long-term operations. As breakfast concluded and preparations for docking began in earnest, Naruto found himself helping Nami secure navigational equipment in the map room, a space that clearly served as her personal domain. Charts covered every surface, complex instruments hung from ceiling mounts, and weather prediction tools whirred softly in the corner. Your transformation ability, she said casually while locking a sextant into its padded case. Can you alter specific features or only perform complete changes? Either way, why? Her eyes sparkled with something that might have been mischief or calculation. Because Borderline City requires subtle navigation of a different sort. Social currents instead of ocean streams. Sometimes standing out is safer than blending in. Standing out is my specialty, Naruto replied with a grin. Just ask anyone in Konoha. I believe it. She stepped closer, studying his face with professional assessment. Your whisker markings are distinctive. In the eastern districts, they'd mark you immediately as someone unusual, possibly connect to animal spirits or bloodline abilities. In the western quarter, they'd be assumed to be tribal markings from a remote island. They're actually from. He hesitated, unsure how much to reveal out Kurama's influence on his development. Your tenant, she suggested quietly. Luffy mentioned something about tailed beasts. Naruto blinked in surprise. He did. We don't keep secrets from each other. At least, not important ones. Her expression softened. Being different isn't something to hide among the Straw Hats. Chopper's a reindeer who ate a human fruit. Robin can sprout limbs anywhere. Luffy's made of rubber. Your fox is just another interesting detail. The casual acceptance struck Naruto speechless. Throughout his childhood, Kurama's presence had been a burden, a secret, a source of isolation. Even now, with Konoha's growing acceptance, there remained careful protocols and concerned whispers. Yet here was Nami, treating his status as casually as noting his hair color. "Thanks," he managed finally. "That's not the usual reaction. Nothing about this crew is usual." She returned to her equipment preparation with brisk efficiency. "So, for your disguise, I suggest keeping the whiskers but changing your hair color and style. Make yourself look like a merchant marine from the North Blue. They're common enough to avoid special attention but respected enough to move freely." "I'll follow your lead," Naruto agreed, strangely pleased by her assumption of expertise. "You know this territory better than I do. And you'll return the favor when we venture into shinobi territory," she replied with a small, genuine smile that transformed her face from merely pretty to breathtaking. Naruto found himself staring longer than was polite, only breaking his gaze when Usopp's voice called from the deck announcing their approach to the harbor entrance. As they headed topside, Nami paused at the door, turning back with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. "For what it's worth, Naruto, I think you'll navigate Borderline City just fine. You have good instincts for people, a different kind of navigation that can't be learned from charts." Coming from the Straw Hat's navigator, it felt like the highest compliment. Borderline City assaulted the senses. The cacophony of dock hands shouting in dialects from across the world mingled with the shrill whistles of harbor officials and the rhythmic chants of trading companies tallying cargo. Briny sea air carried notes of exotic spices from marketplace stalls, the metallic tang of shipwrights, forges, and the distinct umami richness of street food vendors preparing dishes from both east and west. Buildings huddled together in a riot of architectural styles, traditional pagoda-roofed structures from the Ntal nation stood alongside sturdy European-inspired warehouses from the Grand Line, while hybrid designs bridged the gap with creative innovation. Their entry had gone smoother than expected. Captain Yamato's diplomatic credentials opened the Eastern Canal to their approach, while the Straw Hat's legitimate trading permits, acquired through means Nami declined to specify, satisfied the harbor master's requirements. Naruto's disguise, retaining his whisker marks but sporting dark brown hair and merchant marine attire, drew no special attention among the cosmopolitan crowds. Now the combined Up moved through the Eastern Market District, ostensibly shopping for supplies but actually conducting reconnaissance. They'd split into smaller teams to avoid drawing attention, Luffy with Usopp and Hopper exploring food stalls under Sanji's supervision, Zoro supposedly guarding their docked ship, though Nami had muttered something about that directionally challenged idiot probably halfway to another island by now. Robin paired with Shikamaru for information gathering, and Naruto accompanying Nami and Yamato to secure lodgings and establish a base of operations. "The architecture is extraordinary," Yamato observed as they passed a building featuring traditional Fire Country wooden support beams integrated with Water 7 fountain technology. "True fusion rather than simple coexistence. Necessity driving innovation," Nami replied, expertly navigating the crowded street. Pirates brought techniques from across the world while ninja contributed efficient design and defensive elements. Neither could have created this alone. Naruto, walking between them, found his attention constantly pulled in multiple directions. The marketplace itself was fascinating enough, stalls selling weapons he'd never seen alongside familiar shinobi tools, navigational instruments next to chakra-conducting metals, exotic fruits beside soldier pills. But equally captivating was watching Nami operate in this environment, shifting her demeanor subtly as they moved from eastern to central districts. In the eastern quarter, she adopted more formal posture and speech patterns that mimicked shinobi reserve. As they transitioned to the central zone, her steps became more fluid, her gestures more expressive, her bargaining style more flamboyant. She was navigating social currents as expertly as she had guided the sunny through ocean waters. "You're staring," she murmured without looking at him, a hint of amusement coloring her tone. "Learning," he countered with a grin. "This is your element. Like Shin Kakashi-sensei track or Shikamaru play shogi." She laughed softly. "Navigation isn't just about reading maps. It's about reading environments." Her hand brushed his arm as she guided him around a particularly congested corner. Speaking of which, we're being followed. Eastern alley entrance, merchant with the blue headwrap. Naruto resisted the urge to look directly. Instead, he created a Hado clone in a nearby alley with a subtle hand sign, then had it transform into a street cat. The clone cat slipped into the crowd, circling behind their pursuer. Shinobi, not pirate, he reported, quietly after receiving the clone's observations. Chunin level chakra signature, sensor type. Probably routine surveillance rather than targeted. Yamato nodded almost imperceptibly. Expected. Let's continue to our destination without concern but maintain awareness. Their destination proved to be a 4-story building straddling the border between districts, a former diplomatic guesthouse convert. Ted to a private inn catering to travelers from both worlds. Its facade featured traditional elemental nations' design elements while the interior incorporated Grand Line materials and aesthetics. The proprietor, a broad-shouldered woman with intricate tattoos and a formal kimono, greeted them with the perfect balance of respect and discretion. Mitsuki Ryokan welcomes distinguished guests, she intoned, bowing precisely the correct depth for mid-level diplomats. Your accommodations are prepared as requested. The accommodations exceeded expectations. Rather than individual rooms, they'd secure an entire floor, a traditional elemental nation's layout of interconnected spaces that could be reconfigured with sliding panels, centered around a common area with both tatami flooring and Western-style furnishings. Windows overlooked both the harbor and the city center, providing excellent surveillance opportunities. Most importantly, the walls and ceilings contained privacy seals recognizable to Yamato. Old Anbu safe house, he explained after activating the seals with a specific chakra pattern. Converted to commercial use after the border treaties but still maintains functional security measures. We can speak freely here. Perfect for our needs, Nami approved, immediately claiming a corner table for her maps and navigational equipment. Central location, good sight lines, escape routes in 3 directions. A pirate's assessment, Yamato observed without judgment. A survivor's assessment, she corrected, her tone cooling slightly. When you've lived under threat long enough, you develop certain habits. Something in her voice, a carefully controlled edge that hinted at deeper wounds, caught Naruto's attention. Before he could pursue it, the sliding door opened to admit the rest of their scattered group. Luffy bounded in first, cheeks stuffed with some local delicacy, followed by an exasperated Sanji carrying actual supplies. Usopp and Chopper entered wide-eyed, clearly impressed by the accommodations. Robin and Shikamaru arrived last, deep in conversation about historical archives. Good hunting, Yamato inquired as everyone settled around the common room. The CIT's information network is even more extensive than reported, Shikamaru replied, producing a small scroll from his vest. We've identified 3 primary sources worth investigating: the borderline archives in the Central District, the Collectors Guild in the Western Quarter, and a private merchant named Takeda who specializes in rare texts from both worlds. Robin continued seamlessly. The archives provide breadth, containing official records of interactions between the elemental nations and Grand Line territories. The guild offers depth, with specialized knowledge of devil fruits documented over centuries. Takeda provides the unexpected, texts considered mythological or heretical by both governments. Any specific mention of devil fruit and Jinchuriki interaction? Naruto asked, leaning forward with interest. Nothing explicit, Robin answered, her calm voice belying the significance of her next words. However, we encountered a reference to the convergence of spirit vessels and Ocean's forbidden fruit, in a fragmentary text dating approximately 800 years ago. The Void Century, Nami breathed, exchanging a meaningful glance with her crewmates. The what? Yamato inquired, his casual tone not quite masking his intense interest. 100-year period erased from history, Robin explained. The world government forbids its study under penalty of death, which naturally makes Robin obsessed with uncovering it. Usopp added with nervous affection. Shikamaru's expression remained neutral, but Naruto recognized his friend's strategic mind working at full capacity. This convergence reference, could it relate to the Sage of Six Paths era in our history? The timeframes potentially align. The founding of the shinobi world, Naruto explained for the pirates' benefit. N chakra was first distributed to humanity. The parallel is suggestive, Robin acknowledged. Both worlds experienced fundamental transformations during roughly the same historical period, followed by systematic suppression of records. That can't be coincidence, Naruto stated firmly. Rarely is, Yamato agreed. The question becomes whether this historical connection holds relevance to our current situation, specifically to Naruto's unique condition in the Akatsuki Pirate Alliance. Luffy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet while demolishing a plate of local dumplings, suddenly spoke. Does it matter? Old stuff is old stuff. We just need to find these Akatsuki guys and kick their asses, right? Your strategic depth continues to astonish, Straw Hat, Shikamaru drawled, though a hint of amusement softened his sarcasm. Actually, Nami interjected, Luffy has a point, just not for the reason he thinks. She moved to the center of the room, automatically commanding attention. Historical mysteries are fascinating, but we have immediate concerns. Naruto needs to understand his new powers, we need information about enemy movements, and we need it quickly. The practical approach is to divide our efforts. She turned to Robin. You and Shikamaru should continue the historical research, you're both naturally suited to it, and the connection between our worlds could prove crucial long-term. To Yamato, your wood release abilities would be invaluable for securing access to restricted areas of the archives. Would you be willing to assist them? Yamato glanced at Shikamaru, who nodded approval. A reasonable allocation of resources. Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper can gather information from the streets. They have a talent for making friends in unlikely places. Sanji's cookie. Ing's skills can open doors in the restaurant district where both pirates and shinobi relax their guard. Each named crew member nodded agreement, even Luffy seeming to appreciate having a clear assignee. NT, especially one that involved exploring food districts. And us? Naruto asked, already knowing he'd been paired with the navigator but curious about her reasoning. Nami met his gaze directly. Yo, you need practical training with your devil fruit abilities from someone familiar with their limitations. I've observed enough users to help, and your transformation abilities provide cover for testing your powers without drawing attention. Makes sense, Shikamaru acknowledged. Though I'm curious why you're not pursuing the monetary angle yourself. Weren't you concerned with the ship's finances this morning? A brief flash of something, embarrassment, defensiveness, crossed Nami's face before she composed herself. Naruto's Ope Ope powers are worth more than gold right now. Besides, someone needs to map this city properly. The charts we purchased are missing key strategic elements. The subtle shift in dynamics wasn't lost on Naruto. The navigator, infamous among her crew for prioritizing treasure above almost everything, was choosing to invest her time in him instead. The realization sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. The planning session continued with specific timetables and communication protocols. When they finally broke for the evening meal, brought by trusted staff rather than risking public dining, Naruto found himself seated beside Nami on the Western-style balcony overlooking the harbor lights. Your crewmates accepted your leadership without question, he observed, breaking apart chopsticks for his ramen. Even though Luffy's the captain. Nami smiled around a bite of her own noodles. Luffy leads our hearts in our battles. I handle the practical details that keep us alive between adventures. It's always been that way. Like Shikamaru and me, Naruto reflected. I charge ahead while he figures out 10 steps in advance. You're not as impulsive as you pretend to be, she countered, surprising him. I've watched you these past few days. You project spontaneity but observe everything. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, slightly embarrassed at being so easily read. Force of habit. People underestimate the loud, orange-wearing knucklehead. Their mistake. Her amber eyes reflected the harbor lights, giving them an almost golden quality. Tomorrow we'll start your training. The Ope Ope no Mi has limitations you need to understand before we encounter trouble. Like the swimming thing you mentioned. That's going to be a problem for a shinobi, we use water walking constantly. That's just the beginning. She set down her bowl, expression turning serious. Devil fruit powers are nullified by seawater and sea prism stone. They drain stamina proportional to the area affected by your abilities. And they interact unpredictably with other powers. Like tailed beasts, Naruto supplied. Exactly. Which is why we need controlled testing in secure locations. She hesitated, then added more softly, and why I volunteered rather than Robin. If something goes wrong, I have weather control that could potentially counter spatial distortions. The statement contained layers, practical consideration, certainly, but also implicit concern for his well-being and willingness to place herself at risk. For someone who'd spent much of his life being viewed as a dangerous weapon, the vote of confidence meant more than she could possibly know. "Thank you," he said simply, letting sincerity rather than his usual exuberance color the words. Nami held his gaze for a moment longer than necessary, then looked away toward the harbor where fishing boats were returning with evening catches, their lanterns creating a constellation of moving lights on the dark water. "Tell me about your home," she requested suddenly. "Not the mission details or village capabilities, just what it means to you." The unexpected question bypassed Naruto's usual defenses. Instead of his standard enthusiastic declarations about becoming Hokage, he found himself sharing quieter truths. "Konoha is contradictions. The place that isolated me as a child but gave me the precious people who saved me. Beautiful forests hiding military power. Families living normal lives eel shinobi move in shadows to protect them." He traced the grain of the wooden railing. "It's Ichiraku ramen when I was hungry. Uruka-sensei believing in me when no one else did. Team 7 arguing over D-rank missions." He glanced at her, suddenly self-conscious. "Sorry, that probably sounds silly to someone who's seen the whole world." "Not at all." Her voice held an unexpected gentleness. "Home isn't about geography, it's about belonging. The Sunny is more home to me than the village where I was born." A shadow crossed her expression. "Especially after Arlong." Arlong. Her fingers tightened around her cup. "A fishman pirate who controlled my village for 8 years. He murdered my mother, enslaved me for my cartography skills, and extorted everyone I loved." The pain in her voice resonated with something deep in Naruto's own history, the lonely child seeking escape, the burden of being valuable for what you contain rather than who you are. "How did you escape?" he asked quietly. A genuine smile warmed her face. "Luffy happened. He destroyed Arlong Park, shattered the maps I'd drawn under duress, and told me I was his navigator. Just like that, freedom I'd stopped believing possible." "That sounds like something I'd do," Naruto admitted with a small grin. "It does, doesn't it?" She studied him with newfound curiosity. "You and Luffy share that quality, making the impossible seem inevitable through sheer stubborn belief." Before he could respond, a commotion from inside interrupted them. They returned to find Chopper in full doctor mode, examining a trembling Usopp who'd apparently sampled some exotic street food with unexpected effects. "His nervous system is reacting to something in the spice blend," the reindeer explained, medical bag open beside him. "I need to synthesize a counteragent. But it will take time to identify the exact compounds." Usopp's condition deteriorated visibly even as they watched. Muscles spasming, breathing growing labored, skin taking on an alarming purplish tinge. Naruto recognized the symptoms from Sakura's medical training sessions. Neurotoxin, fast-acting, potentially fatal without immediate intervention. "Room," he said without hesitation, extending his hand. The blue sphere expanded to encompass Usopp, Chopper, and the immediate area. Within the dome, Naruto's awareness extended to the molecular level. He could sense the foe rain compounds spreading through Usopp's bloodstream, the misfiring nerve impulses, the struggling organs. "What are you doing?" Chopper asked, eyes wide with professional concern and fascination. "Emergency extraction." Naruto made a pulling motion with his right hand, drawing the toxic compounds directly from Usopp's bloodstream into a floating sphere of purplish liquid suspended in midair. "I can remove the toxin faster than conventional methods." He continued the extraction process, isolating affected tissues and accelerating their natural recovery with careful application of the Ope Ope powers. The procedure required intense concentration. One mistake could cause catastrophic damage to Usopp's nervous system, but the knowledge seemed to flow through him instinctively, as if the fruit itself guided his actions. After several tense minutes, Usopp's breathing normalized, his color returning to its natural tone. The extracted toxin remained suspended within the room, a perfect sphere of deadly compounds. "Shambles," Naruto muttered, swapping the toxin with water from a nearby glass, effectively containing the dangerous substance for Chopper's later analysis. He released the room, exhaling heavily as the blue dome dissipated. Using the power with such precision had drained him more than expected, but the results justified the cost. Usopp was already sitting up, looking disoriented but fundamentally healthy. That was... Quote. Chopper's professional demeanor briefly gave way to starry-eyed amazement. Amazing. You extracted the toxin directly from his circulatory system without invasive procedures. The precision required at the cellular level is beyond anything I've seen outside Water 7's most advanced medical facilities. It's just the fruit's ability, Naruto demurred, fortable with praise for power he'd acquired by accident. No, Robin interjected, having observed the entire procedure with scholarly attention. The Ope Ope no Mi grants capability, not knowledge. Your application demonstrates intuitive understanding of anatomy and biochemistry that the average user wouldn't possess. My previous tenant says it's because of our connection, Naruto explained hesitantly. The fruit's abilities are being filtered through both of us, combining medical precision with enhanced healing. Nami, who had watched the procedure with intense focus, placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. You need to rest. That level of power consumption shows on your face. Only then did Naruto realize how drained he felt. Not just chakra depletion but a bone-deep weariness. She reminded him of Sage Mode's initial training. He accepted her guidance toward one of the sleeping quarters without protest, vaguely aware of Shikamaru and Yamato exchanging significant glances behind him. The last thing he remembered before sleep claimed him was Nami's voice softly instructing someone to let him rest, and the gentle pressure of a blanket being drawn over his shoulders. Morning. Arrived with the dissonant harmony of seagulls arguing over harbor scraps and street vendors announcing their wares. Naruto woke feeling surprisingly refreshed, his reserves replenished faster than expected. Another benefit of Kurama's presence enhancing the devil fruit's recovery process. He found most of the group already departed on their assigned missions, leaving only Nami at the common room. Table surrounded by partially completed maps of the city. She looked up as he entered, relief briefly crossing her features before being replaced by professional assessment. You've recovered well, she observed, setting aside her drafting tools. How do you feel? Ready for training, he replied with genuine enthusiasm. Yesterday showed me how much I still need to learn about these powers. Good answer. She stood, gathering a small pack prepared beside her chair. I've found us a suitable location, an abandoned warehouse in the northeastern district. Isolated, structurally sound, and conveniently absent from official records. How did you find a place like that so quickly? Her lips curved in a small, secretive smile. Navigator's intuition, and possibly some barely legal access to municipal archives while everyone was sleeping. They departed through side streets, Naruto adopting his merchant marine disguise while Nami altered her appearance with a hooded cloak and subtle makeup changes. The city in daylight revealed new layers of complexity, ninja courier networks operating alongside pirate information brokers, merchants from both worlds haggling in hybrid marketplaces, Eldren playing games that combined elements from both cultures. It's strange, Naruto commented as they passed a group of students practicing what appeared to be chakra control exercises using Grand Line navigational equipment. Everyone acts like this blending of worlds is normal, but in Konoha, we barely acknowledge anything beyond the elemental nations exists. Similar attitude in much of the Grand Line, Nami replied, expertly guiding them through progressively narrower alleyways. The world government actively discourages knowledge of the elemental nations, classifies your territories as restricted zone east. Why the separation? We're clearly capable of coexistence. Power structures prefer predictability. She gestured toward a government building where officials from both worlds conducted business with rigid formality. The Shinobi Union and world government maintain influence through controlled information. This city exists despite their preferences, not because of them. The warehouse, when they reached it, proved ideal for their purposes. A cavernous space with high ceilings, minimal windows, and thick stone walls that would contain both sound and chakra signatures. Previous occupants had left behind crates and equipment that could serve as training props without being missed if damaged. Perfect, Naruto approved, dropping his transformation technique. I can cut loose here without worrying about collateral damage. Not completely loose, Nami cautioned, removing her cloak and extracting her klima tact from its carrying case. We're testing limits, not destroying the building. Yes, sensei, he replied with a teasing salute that earned him a rolled-up map swatted against his arm. Let's start with baseline assessment, she directed, adopting the tone of someone who had trained others before. Create your room at maximum sustainable size without drawing on your fox's power. Naruto complied, centering himself before extending his hand. Room. The blue sphere expanded outward, growing until it encompassed approximately half the warehouse space, a diameter of nearly 30 meters. Maintaining it felt like holding a moderately sized Rasengan, demanding attention but not immediately draining. Nami walked the perimeter, measuring with practiced steps and making notes on a small pad. Impressive scale for a new user. Now, while maintaining the room, perform basic manipulations on these objects. She tossed several items into the sphere, a wooden block, a metal canister, a length of rope, and what appeared to be a small plant in a pot. The variety of materials presented different challenges, testing his control over organic and inorganic substances. For the next hour, she methodically assessed his capabilities, swapping objects of different masses, cutting and reassembling inanimate items, manipulating the structure of the plant without harming it. Throughout, she recorded observations with scientific precision, occasionally consulting a SM. All notebook containing what appeared to be previous observations of devil fruit users. Your control is exceptional for someone so recently empowered, she concluded as he finally released the room. Breathing heavily from sustained exertion. Most new users struggle with precision, but you naturally prioritize control over power. Years of chakra training, Naruto explained, accepting a water canteen she offered. Had to learn fine control because my natural reserves are so large, like trying to fill a teacup from a waterfall. The medical knowledge is more surprising, she observed. Extracted that toxin from Usopp with professional precision. Naruto shrugged. It just came to me when needed. Like the fruit wants to be used correctly. Interesting theory. Nami retrieved her Klima tact, assembling it with practiced movements. Let's test interaction effects. Create a room while I generate weather conditions inside it. The combined experiment proved fascinating. Nami's artificially generated clouds retained their integrity when swapped with other objects but dispersed when directly manipulated through Naruto's spatial control. Lightning conducted normally through the RO but could be redirected by swapping its target with non-conductive materials. Rain droplets could be individually manipulated, suspended, rearranged into patterns, even combined into larger bodies of water. The applications are endless, Nami murmured, watching as Naruto created a floating sphere of gathered raindrops that refracted light like a crystal ball. Weather navigation through dangerous systems. Precipitation control in drought regions, lightning defense systems. Or medical techniques incorporating targeted electrical stimulation, Naruto added, the knowledge flowing through I am from the fruit's inherent understanding. Your lightning combined with my spatial control could restart hearts or stimulate nerve regeneration. Their eyes met across the warehouse, mutual recognite. Ion of the potential their combined abilities represented hanging in the air between them. Something shifted in that moment, professional respect deepening into genuine connection founded on shared discovery. The training continued through midday, each exercise building on previous findings. They discovered that Naruto could extend his room underwater, tested in a large basin but with increased stamina cost. His shadow clones could create independent rooms, though smaller than his original. The Rasengan, incorporated within a room, could be precisely targeted to affect specific materials while leaving surroundings untouched. By early afternoon, both were exhausted but exhilarated by their progress. They sat side by side on crates, sharing a simple lunch of onigiri and dried fish purchased from a street vendor on their way. Your abilities complement mine in unexpected ways, Nami observed between bites. My weather manipulation affects broad areas but lacks surgical precision. Your spatial control is exact but benefits from my environmental effects. We make a good team, Naruto agreed, then added more hesitantly, it's nice working with someone who sees these powers as tools rather than weapons or threats. She glanced at him. Your village fears what you can do. Not exactly fears, but. He searched for words. They see the power first, me second. It's been that way my whole life, first with Kurama. Now with the Ope Ope abilities. While everyone else sees the weapon, all they can think to do is control it, Nami said softly, understanding in her voice. I lived that reality under Arlong. Valued only for my cartography skills, nothing else about me mattering. The parallel hadn't occurred to him before, but now it seemed obvious. Different circumstances but similar experiences, being reduced to utility rather than recognized as a person. Without thinking, he reached for her hand, a gesture of shared understanding. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers tightened briefly around his. For what it's worth, I see Naruto first, powers second. The whisker-faced knucklehead who teleported onto our ship and asked me not to drown his friends. He laughed, the sound echoing in the cavernous space. Not my smoothest introduction, but memorable. She withdrew her hand to gather their lunch wrappings, but the warmth of the connection lingered. We should head back soon. I want to compare notes with Robin and Shikamaru before evening. As they prepared to leave, a subtle vibration shook the warehouse floor, not an earthquake but a distinct pattern that Naruto recognized immediately. Detection seal, he said sharply, instantly alert. Someone's searching for chakra signatures in this district. Nami transformed from relaxed companion to tactical navigator in an instant, gathering her equipment with efficient movements. How close? 3 blocks and closing. He formed a shadow clone that immediately hanged into a nondescript bird and flew out a high window. Multiple searchers using sensor-type jutsu, moving in a grid pattern. Routine patrol or targeted search? Can't tell yet. Either way, we should avoid contact. He peered through a small gap in the boarded windows. There's a canal access point 20 meters east. Water is your territory, can we use it? Absolutely. She finished collapsing her klima tact into its compact form. But we'll need to submerge completely. With your devil fruit powers, I can manage short exposures, he assured her. Kurama's energy partially counteracts the weakness. They slipped out through a loading bay at the rear of the warehouse, keeping to shadows as they made their way to the canal access. The waterway itself was narrow but deep, originally designed for covert movement of goods between districts. Nami led confidently, having apparently memorized the canal system during her nighttime map studies. Just as they reached the water access, Naruto's clone dispersed, sending a rush of information. They're definitely searching for something specific, concentrated around our training area and expanding outward. Us, or just unusual energy signatures? Nami asked, already lowering herself onto the narrow maintenance walkway beside the canal. Unknown. But they're using tracking specialists, Inuzuka clan members with enhanced senses. Then water is our best option. Their tracking dogs can't follow scents underwater. She glanced at the dark canal water with professional assessment. It's approximately 400 meters to the central junction where we can emerge unobserved. Can you handle that much submersion? Naruto nodded grimly. I'll manage. Might need help at the end, though. I'm an excellent swimmer, she assured him with a confidence that left no room for doubt. Ready. Without waiting for response, she slipped into the water with barely a ripple, surfacing to motion him forward. Naruto took a deep breath and followed, immediately feeling the characteristic weakness that water inflicted on devil fruit users. It wasn't complete debilitation. Kurama's energy provided some buffer, but his strength immediately diminished by half, limbs feeling leaden and movements sluggish. Nami recognized his struggle instantly, moving closer to provide support. They submerged together, her arm locked around his waist as she guided them through the underwater passage with powerful kicks. Though hampered by his weight, she navigated with unwavering confidence, occasionally surfacing in hidden alcoves designed for covert operatives to catch breath. During one such moment, Naruto whispered, "How are you this good underwater? Even elite water-style shinobi would struggle with this canal system." "I grew up on an island," she replied simply. "Learned to swim before walking. And after my village was." She hesitated. During Arlong's occupation, understanding water became survival. The frank admission, offered without self-pity, enhanced his already growing respect. Before he could respond, sounds of pursuit echoed from the street above, voices calling out search patterns, the distinctive clicking of tracking instruments. They submerged again, pushing deeper into the canal network. The journey became increasingly challenging as Naruto's resistance to water's effects began to falter. By the time they reached the central junction, an underground chamber where multiple canals converged beneath a maintenance building. His consciousness was wavering. With a final powerful surge, Nami dragged him onto a narrow stone platform, both gasping for breath. Naruto lay flat, feeling strength gradually returning as water sheeted from his clothes. That was, he managed between breaths, impressive navigation. Basic survival, she countered modestly, wringing water from her hair. Though I didn't account for how heavy you'd be as deadweight. Must be all that ramen. Hey, his indignant protest was undermined by a grin he couldn't suppress. Even half drowned and potentially being hunted, bantering with Nami felt surprisingly natural. They rested only long enough to regain basic functionality before continuing through maintenance passages that eventually led to a public bathhouse in the central district. Nami produced coins for entry, and they separated to utilize the gender-divided facilities for cleaning and changing into dry clothes she'd apparently packed in waterproof pouches. Naruto marveled at her foresight. He'd been ready for training, but she'd prepared for escaping pursuit. When they reunited outside, both in fresh disguises, Nami led them through a circuitous route of busy marketplaces and crowded thoroughfares where individual tracking would be nearly impossible. Only when certain they'd evaded detection did they approach their lodgings from an unexpected direction, entering through service passages rather than main entrances. They found Shikamaru and Robin already returned, surrounded by scrolls and ancient texts spread across the common room table. Both looked up as the soaked pair entered, expressions shifting from scholarly concentration to tactical assessment. Trouble? Shikamaru asked simply. Possibly, Naruto confirmed, dropping his transformation jutsu. Sensor-type search patterns in the northeastern district, concentrated around our training location. Professional operation, multiple operatives. Shikamaru's fingers formed their familiar thinking position. Coincidence, routine security, or targeted surveillance, three possibilities with different implications. Timing suggests the latter, Robin observed. Particularly in light of what we've discovered. She gestured toward an ancient scroll carefully unrolled at the center of the table, preserved text visible beneath a protective charm. Naruto and Nami moved closer, intrigued by the scholar's intensity. The scroll contained text in an archaic form that combined elements of both worlds' writing systems, flowing script interspersed with angular symbols that seemed to pulse slightly in the afternoon light. What is it? Nami asked, leaning forward with scholarly interest that matched Robin's own. A historical account predating both the Void Century and the era of the Sage, Shikamaru explained. Fragmentary, but explicit in describing a connection between our worlds that was deliberately severed. By whom? Naruto's attention fixed on a particular symbol that seemed vaguely familiar, reminiscent of the Uzumaki clan spirals but more angular, more ancient. That remains unclear, Robin replied. But the text describes vessels of spiritual energy, interacting with fruits of the ocean's power, in a ritual conducted at the convergence of land and sea, where boundaries between worlds grow thin. Jinchuriki and devil fruits, Naruto translated automatically. At a place where the elemental nations and Grand Line territories meet. Like Borderline City, Nami added, eyes widening. Where exactly did you find this scroll? Takeda's private collection, Shikamaru answered. The merchant specializing in texts considered heretical by both governments. He was reluctant to share until Robin employed persuasive techniques. The archaeologist's expression remained neutral, but a small smile played at the corners of her mouth. Scholarly discourse can be quite convincing when properly applied. The scroll mentions a specific location, Shikamaru continued. A chamber beneath the convergence point, the original foundation upon which this city was built. According to the text, it contains records of previous ritual attempts and their outcomes. Which could explain your unique condition, Robin added, looking directly at Naruto. If there's historical precedent for Jinchuriki absorbing devil fruit powers, the records might exist in this chamber. Naruto exchanged glances with Nami, both recognizing the implications simultaneously. That's why we're being tracked, he concluded. Someone else is searching for the same information. And they detected your combined energy signatures during training, Shikamaru confirmed. Drawing attention to the very connection the scroll describes. So what now? Nami asked, tactical mind already shifting to next steps. Find this chamber before they do. The scroll provides approximate location, Robin confirmed, indicating a series of coordinates annotated in the margin. Beneath the central plaza, accessed through the ancient sewer system, which is undoubtedly monitored, Yamato added, entering from an adjacent room where he'd apparently been listening. If multiple factions seek this information, the approaches will be watched. Then we go tonight, Naruto decided, characteristic determination replacing his earlier fatigue. Small team, maximum stealth, in and out before anyone realizes. Shikamaru sighed with familiar resignation. Troublesome as always, but logical given the circumstances. I'll prepare tactical approaches while you two dry off completely and rest. No use exploring ancient chambers while catching colds. As the group dispersed to prepare for the evening expedition, Naruto found himself momentarily alone with Nami in the side room allocated for changing. She was toweling her hair dry. Expression thoughtful. "Does it bother you?" he asked quietly. "The possibility that our worlds were meant to be connected rather than separated." She considered the question seriously before answering. "The Grand Line taught me that artificial boundaries eventually fall. Islands isolated for centuries suddenly connected by new currents. Ancient enemies becoming allies against greater threats." Her amber eyes met his. "If our worlds were once joined, perhaps the separation was always temporary." "Like us," Naruto observed. "Ninja and pirate, completely d.f.f. errant worlds until circumstances forced us together." Something shifted in her expression, softening, warming. Some connections feel inevitable once they happen, regardless of how unlikely they seemed before. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. Then Yamato called from the common room, announcing the return of Luffy's group with additional supplies, and the spell broke. But as they rejoined the others, Naruto noticed that Nami stayed closer than strictly necessary, her shoulder occasionally brushing his as they reviewed maps of the ancient sewer system. Casual contact sent ripples of awareness through him, not the adrenaline rush of battle or the warm camaraderie of friendship, but something new and undefined that made his heightened Ope Ope senses hyper-aware of her proximity. Navigation indeed was proving more complex than he'd anticipated, not just through borderline cities' labyrinthine streets or ancient underground passages, but through the unexpected currents developing between navigator and ninja. Moonlight filtered through high clouds, casting shifting shadows across borderline city's central plaza. The grand open space, designed to accommodate diplomatic functions where elemental nations' officials could meet Grand Line dignitaries on neutral ground, stood eerily empty at this late hour, ceremonial fountains gurgling softly in the silence. From a rooftop overlooking the western approach, Naruto observed the plaza through specialized binoculars borrowed from Usopp's equipment stash. Beside him, Nami consulted a hand-drawn map that combined Robin's historical research with Shikamaru's tactical annotations. Behind them, Yamato maintained a wood-style communication network that connected to their companions positioned at other access points. 3 patrol patterns, Naruto reported softly. 2 visible security teams, mixed shinobi and world government agents. 1 concealed surveillance unit in the North Fountain Maintenance Building. Expected, Nami replied, tracing a route on her map. The sewer access point is here, beneath the eastern ceremonial arch. Originally designed for diplomatic evacuations in emergencies. Which means it's certainly monitored, Yamato added from his position. Shikamaru reports similarly protected entrances at all cardinal points. The mission parameters had been established during their planning session. Access the underground chamber, retrieve historical information about Jinchuriki Devil Fruit interactions, and exit without alerting authorities. Simple in theory, drastically complicated by the multiple factions apparently interested in the same objective. Time for diversion 1, Nami decided, checking the chronometer strapped to her wrist. Right on schedule, a commotion erupted from the harbor district, Luffy, Usopp, and Sanji creating a conspicuous disturbance designed to draw security resources away from the plaza. As predicted, the visible patrols received communications through their headsets, and 2 teams departed swiftly toward the harbor. The concealed unit remained in position, however, demonstrating professional discipline. Robin, status, Nami whisper, Ed into the small den Mushi adapted for short-range communication. Library archives secured, came the archaeologist's calm voice. Second diversion prepared on your signal. Naruto nodded approval of the coordinated plan. While the harbor distraction pulled away regular security, Robin and Shikamaru would trigger historical archive protective seals in the library district, the kind of scholar Lee emergency that would demand attention from specialized units, including the concealed experts currently watching the plaza. Execute Phase 2, Nami directed. Within minutes, distant alarms sound. D from the direction of the historical district. The concealed unit in the fountain building emerged, 4 figures in specialized equipment moving with the coordinated precision of elite operatives. They hesitated briefly, clearly receiving conflicting priorities through their communication devices, before departing eastward toward the library. Now, Naruto whispered, forming a shadow clone that transformed into a nondescript maintenance worker. The clone descended to plaza level, pushing a cart of cleaning supplies toward the ceremonial arch with unhurried movements. Nami monitored the survey, Yon's blind spots she'd identified earlier. Security cameras rotating. Gap in 3, 2, 1. The clone reached the arch precisely as the automated security system cycled, creating a Forsaco ND window where the entrance stood unobserved. With practiced efficiency, it applied a specialized seal, developed through collaboration between Yamato's traditional techniques and Frankie's mechanical innovations, to the maintenance hatch concealed in the arch's base. Seal placed, Naruto confirmed as the clone continued its fabricated cleaning routine before disappearing down a service alley. Ready for Phase 3. Phase 3 represented the mission's most dangerous element. Rather than deactivating security systems, which would trigger immediate alerts, the seal would create a localized time-space disruption. Essentially, looping the security feed while allowing physical access. The technique combined Naruto's Ope Ope abilities with Yamato's chakra suppression expertise, resulting in an innovation neither world had seen before. Activating in 3, 2, 1. Nami pressed a small transmitter concealed in her palm. Below, the seal flared briefly with chakra before settling into an innocuous pattern indistinguishable from the architectural detailing. Naruto extended his senses, confirming the security disruption had successfully engaged. 20-minute window, Yamato reminded them. After that, the feedback loop becomes detectable to advanced systems. They descended swiftly using ninja techniques, Naruto carrying Nami while Yamato created temporary wooden structures that dissolved behind them, leaving no trace of their passage. At the arch's base, Naruto channeled a precise thread of Ope Ope energy into the maintenance hatch, disengaging internal locking mechanisms without triggering alerts. The passage beyond revealed ancient stonework predating the city's current incarnation, massive blocks fitted with preternatural precision, surfaces inscribed with faded symbols, combining elements from both worlds' oldest writing systems. They advanced cautiously, Nami's map guiding them through a labyrinth that spiraled gradually downward. These constructions significantly predate both the Void Century and the Sage's era, Yamato observed, professional interest momentarily overriding mission focus. The engineering principles combine techniques I've only seen in the Saint ancient temples of the elemental nations with materials documented in Robin's research on lost civilizations. A true fusion, Nami agreed, running her fingers along inscriptions that pulsed faintly at her touch. Like the scroll described, where boundaries between worlds grow thin. The passage eventually opened into a circular chamber approximately 30 meters in diameter. Unlike the rough stonework of the access tunnel, this space featured polished surfaces that somehow caught and amplified the minimal light from their covered lanterns. At the chamber's center stood a raised dais supporting what appeared to be a 3-dimensional map, a perfect representation of both the elemental nations and the Grand Line territories, showing them not as separate continents but as interconnected regions of a single world. "It's beautiful," Nami breathed, professional appreciation evident in her voice. The cartographic precision, this predates any known mapping technology by millennia. Naruto, however, found his attention drawn to the chamber's perimeter, where a series of alcoves contained preserved artifacts. "Look at these," he called softly, examining what appeared to be scrolls and fruits encased in transparent, crystal-like material. Yamato joined him, expression grave. "Records of previous attempts," he concluded. Each alcove documents a specific case of Jinchuriki devil fruit interaction. The implications hung heavy in the air. This chamber hadn't just recorded history, it had preserved actual specimens from experiments conducted across centuries. Some alcoves contained scrolls detailing outcomes. Others preserved the physical remains of fruits and chakra-infused objects, and several featured what appeared to be medical diagrams of human subjects. Most of these show failed integrations, Nami observed, studying the ancient text with Robin's translation guide in hand. Catastrophic chakra rejection, physical mutation, mental deterioration. But not all, Naruto noted, indicating an alcove near the chamber's far side. Unlike the others, this space glowed with a faint blue energy reminiscent of his room technique. This one's different. They approached cautiously. Within the crystalline preservation field floated what appeared to be a devil fruit with the distinctive swirling patterns of the Ope Ope no Nami, suspended alongside a small container that pulsed with chakra energy similar to a tailed beast's aura. Successful integration, Yamato read from the accompanying text. Subject demonstrated unified control of spatial manipulation and Biju energy. Achieving temporary transcendence before containment was deemed necessary. Containment. Naruto frowned. What does that mean? Before anyone could respond, a subtle vibration ran through the chamber floor. Dust dislodged from crevices in the ancient ceiling as the entire structure seemed to awaken around them. We've triggered something, Nami warned, backing toward the entrance. Secure. ITY system or the map at the chamber's center suddenly illuminated, projecting a three-dimensional display that filled the room with shifting light patterns. Symbols appeared in the air, ancient char. Actors flowing through complex sequences that combined mathematical precision with artistic beauty. It's not attacking, Yamato observed cautiously. It's presenting information. Naruto stepped forward, drawn by an instinct he couldn't explain. As he approached the central dais, specific symbols brightened, responding to his presence. Within his mindscape, he felt Kurama stir with unusual alertness. The system recognizes you, Nami realized, moving to his side. Both aspects, Jinchuriki and Devil Fruit user. The display shifted, focusing on a specific region where the elemental nations ND Grand Line territories connected, precisely where Borderline City now stood. Historical imagery showed the area as it had appeared centuries ago, a ceremonial site where representatives from both worlds gathered around a central altar. It's showing us the original purpose of this place, Yamato interpreted, scholarly interest overcoming caution. A controlled environment for merging powers from both worlds. But why? Naruto asked, watching as the display showed historical figures, some clearly Jinchuriki by their distinctive chakra patterns, others evidently Devil Fruit users by their specialized abilities, participating in ceremonial exchanges. What were they trying to achieve? The answer materialized within the display, a single unified figure combining both energy signatures, Suro, wounded by concentric circles of power that expanded outward to encompass the entire mapped world. The image was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying, a being of transcendent capability extending influence across reality itself. Balance, Nami whispered, translating symbols flowing beneath the image. They sought to create guardians who could maintain balance between the worlds, preventing either from dominating the other. Which explains why both the world government and hidden powers within the elemental nations would want this information suppressed, Yamato concluded. Unified power threatens existing control structures. The display shifted again, showing historical divisions being deliberately created, physical boundaries reinforced with energy barriers, knowledge systematically suppressed. Populations separated and conditioned to fear the other world. The final sequence showed the chamber itself being sealed away, removed from both worlds' histories. Until now, Naruto murmured, understanding dawning. Until someone accidentally achieved what they were trying to create. The implication hung in the air. His unique condition, Jinchuriki merged with Ope Ope no Nami, represented the very convergence this ancient site had been designed to produce. Whether by chance or destiny, he had become what centuries of deliberate experimentation had failed to achieve. Before they could process this revelation, the chamber's entrance rumbled ominously. Stone ground against stone as ancient mechanisms activated, sealing their exit. That's not good, Nami stated with admirable understatement. Please tell me there's another way out. Yamato pressed his palm against the sealed doorway, extending wood-style sensory techniques through the stone. The entire access tunnel is locking due. WN. sequential seals activating all the way to the surface. Time-delayed security, Naruto realized. The system allowed us to access the information, then triggered containment protocols. Just like the successful subject in the record. Nami added, eyes widening. Transcendence followed by containment. The chamber doesn't just record history, it enforces it. The implications were chilling. This wasn't simply an ancient library. It was a specialized facility designed to control the very power convergence it documented. And now it had identified Naruto as exactly the phenomenon it was programmed to contain. As if confirming their theory, the crystalline containers in each alcove began to pulse with increasing intensity. The map display shifted to a countdown sequence, ancient symbols tick. King downward toward some ominous conclusion. I'm guessing that's not a friendly timer suggesting we wrap up our visit, Naruto observed with forced lightness, mind racing through possibilities. Nami was already examining the chamber's architecture with a navigator's eye for structural weaknesses. The stonework is seamless, no visible alternative exits. Whatever's coming when that countdown ends, we need a plan before it happens. Yamato attempted a wood-style technique to create an exit, but the ancient stone actively resisted his manipulation, absorbing the chakra and growing more solid rather than yielding. The entire chamber is designed to contain chakra, he reported grimly. My abilities are being neutralized on contact. Naruto extended his senses through the Ope Ope powers, creating a room that encompassed the entire space. Within the blue dome, he could perceive the complex energy systems woven into the chamber's very structure, interlocking barriers specifically calibrated to counteract both chakra and devil fruit abilities. They thought of everything, he admitted, grudging respect coloring his tone. The defenses adapt to whatever power attempts to breach them. So we need something they couldn't have anticipated, Nami concluded, extracting her klima tact. Something that combines our abilities in ways these ancient designers never imagined. The countdown continued its inexorable progress. Now less than 3 minutes from completion. Whatever security measure awaited them, they had precious little time to develop countermeasures. Naruto's mind raced through possibilities, reviewing everything they'd learned during their training session. Weather manipulation inside a room, shadow clones maintaining separate spatial fields, the precise control over molecular structures. I have an idea, he announced, turning to Nami with sudden intensity. But it's risky, untested, and requires perfect coordination. Her response was immediate and unhesitating. Tell me what you need. The simple trust in those words, from someone who admitted to trusting very few people completely, struck him more powerfully than he expected. In that moment, something crystalline zed between them, a connection transcending their different worlds and backgrounds. Create the most powerful localized storm you can manage, he instructed. Lightning, pressure differentials, tempera, Churay extremes, everything concentrated in the smallest possible area. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Atmospheric manipulation at the molecular level, like we practiced, but maximized. Exactly. I'll use the room to contain and direct the energy, creating a focused point that might overload the chamber's defenses. Yamato looked between them skeptically. The chamber was designed to contain power. Generating more energy plays into its strengths. Not if we're not trying to overpower it, Naruto explained, already beginning to form hand seals. We're trying to speak its language, create a controlled convergence that mirrors what the system was designed to monitor. If it recognizes the pattern, it might open rather than seal. It was a desperate theory based on minimal evidence, but as the countdown approached its final minute, options were scarce. Nami was already assembling her klima tact, fingers moving with practiced precision as she calibrated settings. Ready when you are, she confirmed, staff extended. Room, Naruto intoned, creating his largest sustainable dome encompassing the entire chamber. Within this space, he generated 3 shadow clones who immediately began forming specialized Rasengan variants, one wind-natured, one incorporating yang release, one purely spatial manipulation. As the clones worked, Nami activated her weather system. The air within the chamber, rapidly charged with electrical potential. Temperature gradients formed impossible microclimates, areas of freezing cold separated from regions of intense heat by mere centimeters. Moisture condensed. and evaporated in rhythmic patterns that matched the pulsing of the crystalline containers along the walls. 30 seconds, Yamato warned, preparing his own wood-style techniques to provide whatever support might prove necessary. Now, Naruto directed, nodding to Nami. She brought her staff down in a precise arc, channeling all the accumulated atmospheric energy toward the center of the chamber. Lightning, wind, and pressure waves converged on the map display where Naruto's shadow clones simultaneously released their specialized Rasengan variants. The collision should have been catastrophic. Enough power to level a significant portion of the city above. Instead, contained within Naruto's room, the energies merged into a perfect sphere of swirling blue-white light, exactly mirroring the historical display of a unified power source. For one breathless moment, nothing happened. The countdown reached 0, ancient symbols flashing in warning sequences around the chamber. Then, responding to the energy pattern they'd created, the map display shifted configuration. The stone floor beneath it spiraled open, revealing a descending staircase illuminated by the same crystalline material that preserved the alcove specimens. It worked, Nami exclaimed, already moving toward the new exit. The chamber recognized the convergence pattern. Don't celebrate yet, Yamato cautioned, following close behind. We still need to determine where this leads. The staircase descended in a tight spiral, eventually opening into a narrow tunnel that sloped gently upward. Unlike the ceremonial chamber above, this passage featured utilitarian construction, clearly designed for practical evacuation rather than ceremonial purposes. After several minutes of cautious advance, they encountered a simple stone door marked with a single symbol combining the spiral of the Uzumaki clan with the curved lines of an ancient log pose. Emergency exit, Nami translated, consulting Robin's guide. For those who understand balance. Naruto placed his palm against the door, channeling a careful mixture of chakra and Ope Ope energy. The stone responded immediately, sliding silently upward to reveal a narrow alley in what appeared to be the western district of Borderline City, far from their original entry point near the central plaza. They emerged cautiously, Yamato confirming no immediate surveillance before sealing the passage behind them. Only when they'd put several blocks between themselves and the exit did they pause to orient themselves. We're in the trade district, Nami determined, identifying architectural landmarks. Approximately 2 kilometers from our lodgings. And well past our 20-minute window, Yamato added grimly. The security disruption will have failed by now. Our original entry point is undoubtedly compromised. Naruto created a shadow clone that immediately transformed into a messenger bird, flying off to warn their companions. Shikamaru will implement contingency plans. We should take an indirect route back. As they navigated through increasingly crowded morning streets, the city awakening to its daily rhythm oblivious to the ancient revelations beneath its foundations, Naruto found himself processing the implications of what they'd discovered. The deliberate separation of worlds. The systematic suppression of knowledge about power convergence. The NT facility designed to contain exactly what he had accidentally become. It painted a troubling picture of historical forces manipulating both worlds' development to maintain artificial boundaries. You're quiet, Nami observed as they paused in a busy marketplace, blending with morning shoppers while checking for pursuit. Just thinking about what we learned, he replied, automatically creating a transformation to alter his appearance slightly. If both our world's power structures have actively suppressed this knowledge for centuries, then your condition represents exactly what they fear most, she concluded. A bridge between worlds they've worked to keep separate. Which makes me an even bigger target than before, he acknowledged, the weight of this realization settling heavily. Not just for Akatsuki, not just for power-hungry pirates, but for the foundational structures of both our worlds. Nami's expression softened with unexpected sympathy. Being important is rarely comfortable. Believe me, I understand. My navigation abilities have made me valuable to people with dangerous ambitions my entire life. The parallel struck him again. Different circumstances but similar experiences of being valued for utility rather than personhood. Without thinking, he reached for her hand, a gesture of shared understanding that had become increasingly natural between them. She accepted the contact without hesitation, fingers intertwining with his. For what it's worth, I think the chamber revealed something else important, the original purpose wasn't domination but balance. Protection rather than control, a guardian rather than a weapon, he murmured, the concept resonating with his deepest aspirations. From childhood, his dream of becoming Hokage had always been about Seishin, creating a world where others wouldn't suffer as he had. They continued through the awakening city, maintaining careful vigilance while processing the night's revelations. When they finally approached the back entrance to their lodgings, Yamato moved ahead to confirm security, leaving them momentarily alone in a quiet alley. "Thank you," Naruto said suddenly. Nami raised an eyebrow. "For what specifically?" "Trusting my crazy idea in the chamber. Not everyone would have risked everything on a theory that thin." A small smile curved her lips. "I've sailed with Luffy long enough to recognize when instinct trumps logic. Besides," she added, her voice softening, "your instincts have proven reliable in matters beyond ancient security systems." The implication hung in the air between them. Acknowledged but not yet fully explored. Before Naruto could respond, movement at the alley's entrance caught his attention, a familiar figure with pale eyes and indigo hair, expression shifting from determination to shock as she registered the scene before her. "Hinata," he breathed, genuine joy at seeing his friend mingling with sudden awkward awareness of his hand still clasped with Nami's. The Hyuga heiress stood perfectly still, composure maintained despite the flash of emotion that crossed her features. "Naruto-kun," she greeted formally. "I've been sent by Lady Tsunade to provide additional support for your mission." Her pale eyes shifted to Nami, taking in their joined hands with a quick glance before returning to perfect Hyuga neutrality. "I see you've made new allies." The simple statement contained volumes of unspoken complexity, years of patient devotion, unexpressed feelings, and quiet support suddenly confronted with tangible evidence of Naruto's developing connection to someone else. As Yamato returned to usher them inside, tension humming in the air between the three, Naruto realized that navigating ancient security systems might prove significantly easier than navigating the currents of his heart in the days ahead. Chapter 2 End.